Joining us now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. You can see him on YouTube too. There he is, his nice smiling face, Aaron Perez of Punt Factory. Aaron, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing?
Aaron, there we go. I got you now.
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Doing really good, man. Thanks for coming on. I will say, Wendell Ferreira gets an A+ for great story in A to Z sports and so forth. That's how I learned about you. I think that's how a lot of people learned about you and Punt Factory. And I'm always as a parent, I am a big believer in promoting things that can help other parents or other parents' kids get better at what they do and so forth. And this was a great piece on what you call the Punt Factory. And
Yes,
you can on Twitter at the Punt Factory. So before we get into Daniel Whelan and that whole thing, talk about how this whole concept started and how you got involved.
Yeah. So I was a soccer player in high school and got asked to play football out in Covina, California, Charter Oak Chargers, really, really top small public school out there. And I met a guy called Chris Saylor back in 2001 who was a Bruin. Started working with him. And as a junior, I had 25, 30 Division I offers to punt, and I chose UCLA. Was there from 04 to 08 and still hold the unfortunate but awesome records of most punts and most punting yards in school history. And since that time, I worked alongside Chris, and we've developed punters all across the country. And now 4 of the boys are playing in the NFL, including Dan. And we run camps London, Seoul, Tokyo, and all over the country here. So it's been a great experience to kind of just chase your life's work and get to teach punters, all over the world.
Can we rewind for a second? You said you played soccer in high school. So were you punting in high school too, or just playing soccer?
So I was just going to play soccer, and it's a long story, but a week before the first game of freshman year, I got asked to join the team. 3 weeks later, I got pulled up to varsity, and the rest was history.
Okay, then. All right. Well, that makes a lot more sense. So then what happened between college and the pros?
So I did do a little bit. I ended up signing with the Patriots for a month. I did some other camps, the Bills, the Dolphins, but I kind of think my pathway was to coach. So I spent my 20s coaching, and I ended up playing a little bit of professional soccer as well, going back to it. But been coaching, pretty much full time since 2010.
So I should have had you on to talk about the Team USA men's soccer team after last night, but we won't do that. We'll stay in our lane and talk about football. I want to kind of get your thoughts on this. So, where we are, we have, these high school teams that have these teams, these feeder programs. They're starting like first, second grade, these kids that are coming up and so forth. And with all due respect to the people that are coaching, I don't feel like a lot of them are probably getting the best coaching in the whole wide world for punting. So like, what kind of tools do parents really have if that's something their kid likes one way or the other as they're coming up?
So, it is hard. I mean, a lot of times what you'll have from like a grassroots level is a local, high school or college kid that, whether they started it to make a couple extra bucks in the off season or they just enjoy coaching. But, we have camps all over the country. I run camps personally in Nashville, SoCal, NorCal, Seattle, Houston. We've been down to Orlando. And now with the kicking industry, although it may seem small to the average person, I mean, there is a coach or a resource that you can find pretty much anywhere. And they're usually just former college guys that are doing it because they love it.
Talking with Aaron Perez, owner of Punt Factory. Follow him on Twitter at the Punt Factory and find out more about that. Let's talk about the relationship with Daniel Whelan and how that came to be.
That's an awesome one. So Danny, he's from Ireland. He came over here at like, I think it was 13 or 14 with his mom, Anne, who's an absolute rock star. We met at a camp, actually at a Chris Saylor camp, and we realized that we lived pretty close.
Oh.
And so in the 11th grade, I started coaching him one-on-one, and we would train pretty much anytime he had an opportunity. He went to UC Davis and played for a really, really top coach, Dan Hawkins. And I had already had a guy called Colby Wadman that was punting before Dan that played in the NFL a little bit. And so between Dan and myself, we just kept him going, kept him motivated. And then as he got closer to the end of his career, Ann started reaching out about what are the next steps. And I connected Dan with my former agent, who is Norm Chow's son, if you remember that name.
Oh, yeah. Norm Chow, offensive coordinator at USC.
He was and he was at UCLA my senior year. We connected.
Yep.
And Dan signed with Carter, and the rest is history. Carter's done an unbelievable job. He played with the Defenders, got an opportunity with Green Bay. And we've been, we talk pretty often, but, we've been working together ever since, man. So it's been quite some time now.
The Defenders, the XFL team, I'm guessing you're going to say yes to this, but is that experience, even though you're not getting paid a ton of money, worth it for all these guys? They're giving it a go because obviously, TV ratings aren't that of the NFL. They're not filling stadiums like the NFL is, but it is an avenue to still be seen, I would think, by most of these guys.
Absolutely right. The hardest thing about the NFL is at this point, there really is you can't really go play in a competitive league somewhere like, let's say, the soccer system or minor league baseball.
Right, because they don't have a farm system, right?
Exactly. So if you get that one of the opportunities, if no one's watching, at least you have other coaches, such as NFL coaches, that can still watch that film with a live rush, with a helmet and pads, with a little bit of pressure. And Danny really, he smoked it there and put himself on a pedestal.
So now he gets to Green Bay, and now it's a whole new different set of circumstances, I would think, because UCLA, last time I checked, doesn't really get snow. XFL, that's in the spring, so you don't really have to worry about snow there. The cold weather that goes along with it. How was that adjustment?
Well, from a punting perspective and a kicking perspective, if you look at, some of the more colder, cold weather teams, a lot of times what you're looking at is you want a big dude, right? You want a big guy with a big leg that just from a physical perspective can match the weather. So Danny's 6'5", 6'6", 200 and something pounds. He just naturally kicks things very hard. So I think from the perspective of, a mindset, Danny's very, relaxed, laid back. Obviously he takes his work very seriously, but he's a relaxed, very calm demeanor. It comes from mom, comes from his background, but also the fact that he's 6'6", right? Force equals mass times acceleration. He kind of just has that perfect, combination of size, strength, and also just a mindset that, hey, it's cold, I'm still going to kick it hard, right? It's 100 degrees, I'm still going to do my job. And you can see he's improved every year since he's been there and learned to adapt to those weather conditions.
Aaron Perez, owner of Punt Factory. Follow him on Twitter at the Punt Factory. Again, developing punters all over the world, as he said. Daniel Whelan happens to be one of the guys he's worked with since Whelan's been 11 years old. Talk about what the offseason looks like after they do their exit interviews. And then what is that process like with you and your coaches and Daniel Whelan until they get back to training camp?
Yeah, so, there's a couple guys now that Dan will work with. There's a group of pros that train down in San Diego. And I know, his family was based out of like Laguna Beach for a couple of years. So Dan would go back. We would work when I was living there. We'd work pretty often, pretty consistently. And then whenever I'm home, we'll work there. But there's a group of pro kickers and punters that will train down in San Diego. So basically these guys, all the NFL guys, they'll take a couple weeks off. They'll go on vacation. They will be with their families. And then once it gets back to that, within, I would say, 6 to 8 weeks before minicamp, OTAs, they'll get back in the gym. They'll get back out on the field. They'll start hitting balls. And really, I know Dan got some feedback from his special teams coordinator this offseason about shortening his steps. At that level, usually it's just one or two things that they're going to really focus on. Maybe it's hitting a spot. Maybe it's direction. Maybe it's less touchbacks. Whatever that may be, he'll get those instructions from his coach. They're in constant communication. Then we'll take that and really work on the offseason on, okay, what are drills? What are patterns? What are things that we can tell ourselves to improve and be ready for, competitions in the spring and then ultimately the NFL season?
I don't want you to name any names on this next question I'm going to give you, and I don't think you would anyhow, but I am just curious because I've worked with former athletes before, and I've had former athletes tell me their positions coaches didn't know a damn thing about what they were coaching. Do you run into any situations where your punter, whoever it may be, or kicker comes back to you, says, hey, this is what coach wants, and you just start laughing and like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do what I know makes you successful. Do you get any of that with any of the clients that you have?
Not really. I mean, listen, there's always at that level, I think most of those guys are proven enough where they're going to admit one of two things, or really one of one thing, right? I don't really know what, let's say, Dan or any of the other NFL guys, as long as you get the job done, that's all I care about. Here's what I want. I want the ball to the numbers, and I want you to get the ball off, 1.2 seconds touch to toe. And that's it. And that's the only feedback. And at that level, a lot of times, from my experience, the guys are just getting, as long as I hit these parameters, we're good. So, not really anything super crazy, because at the end of the day, it's a results-based business. Their job's relying on the punter doing well and the kicker doing well. So whatever those guys need to do, they're going to allow them to do that.
Talking with Aaron Perez, owner of the Punt Factory, joining us here. Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's on the Fancy. Sparky Pfeiffer with you. What about the offseason as far as how many balls, they kick, per day once they get back into the regiment, like you said, after vacation? Because you hear basketball players, oh, we took 200 jump shots today and all that stuff. So how crazy does it get for a punter? Because if we're being honest, we have Mason Crosby on the air here, Packers all-time leading scorer, field goal kicker. He's on from 9 to 11 every day. And those guys always get accused of playing golf during training camp and not really being into it as much as everybody else. So what does an offseason look like for a punter?
Normally, similar to a pitcher, they're going to have a pitch count, right? And if it's not given to them, it's going to be in their head. But you take a typical guy like Dan, Dan's probably going to be, training from a punting perspective. Let's say Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. A lot of times it's going to be dependent on when he can get a snapper out with him, right? When he has a field availability. Because being out in California, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but finding an open turf field in the middle of the day is pretty hard to find. So
really,
they lock them up pretty good. But normally starting out, it's maybe 2 to 3 days a week, just depending on how the leg's feeling. And normally we're talking anywhere from probably 30 to 50 balls, probably averaging about 40, depending on what we're working on. And then as we get closer to training camp, we may add a third or fourth day just to condition the leg to be kicking more often again. But I'd say anywhere around, 40, 50 balls, situational workout, and then probably 2 to 4 days a week, depending on the year, time of the year.
What about strength training?
It's big. So these guys, a lot of them, Danny will get a workout plan from Green Bay or, whatever team they have. Now,
Right.
A lot of times when they're home, they're going to have a gym they work out that works with top level athletes that will also supplement, right? But, again, probably similar to what they do with the team. I'd say anywhere from 3 to 4 days a week, just to make sure their body's staying healthy. And with the punters, it's a lot of it is, mobility, agility, stretching, and core work as well.
Yeah, you're not trying to bench press anybody at the end of the day, right?
No.
Aaron Perez, owner of the Punt Factory. Follow him on Twitter at the Punt Factory. I always like people go ahead and promote if they have their own business or whatever. So feel free.
Oh, for me, I love what I do. And again, it's in terms of promoting, I kind of let my guys be my resume, right? So right now we've got Danny, we've got Ryan Wright at the Vikings, Jamie Gillen, the Scottish Hammer at the Giants, Jake Bailey at the Dolphins, hundreds of guys in college, a bunch of high school kids across the country. But at the end of the day, those guys, if they do well, it reflects better on us. I just want them to have the greatest experience, man. And it's fun to watch them. I've got a 7-year-old boy that we watch on Saturday, and it's cool to see, going from a FaceTime with the kid on a Wednesday to watching him play on TV. But no, we're very blessed and glad that these guys are living their dream, and may they continue to do so for a long time.
Follow him on Twitter at the Punt Factory. He is Aaron Perez. He works with Daniel Whelan in the offseason as well, has since he's been 11. How cool is that? Aaron, thanks so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, boss, very much.
You betcha. Take care. There he is, Aaron Perez on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all.